Go. Do a quick one.
So what kind of dong do you love?
Raw.
Oh, okay.
Raw Dawn.
Mm.
Lover. You're Mrs. Dr. Manhattan.
Yep.
And Flip is
AKA Brett Hartley.
I didn't watch any of that. I watched you guys talking about it though.
I watched the whole thing. I just finished it. Do you want to know what? You guys
I want to know what, yeah.
You guys have your eyes adjusted to the darkness like I do. You want to know why?
Why?
Like, we're adjusted to the dark. We understand the dark because we're Weezer listeners.
That's one of the funniest things ever, listening to her talk about how this is a thing I largely agree with, and it's very conflicting to me. How I feel like religion is important to people, and one of the really important parts of religion is ritual. But I'm always like, man, but you have to like believe in the ritual for it to really take effect. Like sacrament is good for people, but they have to believe it. It's like it wouldn't do anything for me because I don't think it's doing anything.
Yeah.
And then she's talking about ritual, and she's like Weezer, going to Weezer, that's my ritual.
They brought up Weezer multiple times, but
are you joking?
I was referring to like
an unironic present day Weezer fan.
Yeah, and what I just said about being kind of one of the dark people, it really kind of comes directly from what she's in. Well, here, I got the clip.
Oh my God.
Remember who, like, somebody died, somebody's in this really dark.
What? Family member who died, somebody's in this really dark. Why is that? Where's my speed? There we go. Go to normal.
Place. Like, I'm the person they call because you want someone whose eyes have adjusted to the darkness because they've spent time in there. And so realizing that I don't have to be a golden retriever, I can just be my dark little emo self and help people who are also, who are in spaces like that, even just temporarily, makes me feel like I don't have to be a golden retriever, and I don't have to be an optimist, and I don't have to light up a room, and I don't have to do any of that shit. I'm going to darken up a room. I will always darken up a room, but there are needs for that too. We need people who have made peace with the darkness, because everybody has to meet the darkness at some point in their life. So I've made peace with.
We need people who will come into a room and make everything suck.
Black cat energy all day.
Yeah.
Yes. Always emo. Forever emo.
In the car, blasting Weezer. Yeah.
Always. Till the day I die, it will be Weezer. I want to
Told you I wasn't lying. I wasn't making that up.
That's sad.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're being ironical about being dark and liking Weezer right there, though. But I mean, at the same time, I don't find them very dark. But anyway, this is Britt. She went on with the people over Up on the Shelf, and they talked spirituality. And we could spend the whole entire Thanksgiving talking about this. Or I could skip it entirely. What do you guys want to do?
I'm just going to guess that it was entirely inane, that it was just a circle jerk, where whatever anybody feels at the moment is totally okay because it's a girl saying it. Because that's the whole thing where she's like, oh, well, I bring the darkness. Like, I goddamn guarantee that, like, if I brought the darkness, she and her fans, people like her, would shut me down. You know, they don't want darkness for me. You know, like, it's just, yeah. Obviously the case.
No, I got so I watched the whole thing too, and I got like 10 minutes in before, because Britt Hartley likes to talk a lot about free will. Mm-hmm. She's a determinist, and how it's just obvious that we don't have free will. And I listened to her for like 10 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, Britt thinks that she has free will.
Yeah,
nobody else does, but she thinks that she does.
Yeah. You don't understand that, like, just accepting that there's no free will frees you to allow yourself to choose to decide to go and do something about it and change the people.
See, that's a dumb thing I heard. I remember Kara and Sam talking about that before, Like Sam unironically said, once you realize that you have no free will, you actually have more free will that doesn't exist, I guess.
It
But
doesn't make any sense. It's
so it doesn't make any sense. But like Britt, it's not even just, it's not, she didn't say it that explicitly, but seriously, she acts like she's the only person on the planet with free will. Because I mean, they talk about the election, and she talks about how she took her daughters with her. I think her husband's black, so her daughters are half black. And she's like, I took them with me because I wanted to tell them a better story about how a woman of color could be the president of the United States. Like, well, we chose the wrong fucking one. I'm sure there's plenty that are capable of doing it. Not this one. And they're like, were you shocked with the results? She's like, no, I wasn't. It went exactly as I expected it. White men generally vote in favor of their own power, so they voted exactly how I expected. White women generally give up their power for proximity to power, so they voted exactly how I expected. And okay, so none of them have free will, but you, as the white woman who votes differently, you have the free will, apparently. I don't know.
Nobody voted for anything less than invalid reasons. Nobody had opinions.
Well, Flip being able to predict that they'd be exactly how they would be in this show shows that they had no free will either, but to just be what they are being. But this is one of my irritations with the whole free will concept is no matter what, it's got a little bit of that thing that all answers lead to free will. So you've already got your answer, so you no free will. So you don't even do it. But like one of the deals about it is, what about the randomness of a single choice? You know what I mean? So is it possible that she could choose one thing or choose the other thing, but no matter what, whichever one she chose was what it was going to be all along? So she couldn't have chosen the other one, even though, like, if anything is like a 50-50 choice on something, but if they choose one, all things in the universe would have made it always be that one. Like there's something about it that just doesn't, like, all you are saying is that you can only be within the realms of possibilities of what you are, which I don't think, if that's the argument, fine, but I don't think that we're talking about the will to choose in a moment. You know,
no, we're not, because
we're talking about what you are, what you're being, what you could be, the limited amounts of choices that you may have, but within those limited amount of choices, you have choices. You know?
Yeah, well, so that was, again, Sam and Kara, when they were talking about how their minds were blown by Sam Harris on free will, the example they used was him standing up saying, think of a city. And then he's like, okay, what city are you thinking of? And the crowd person was like, I was thinking of Rio de Janeiro. And he's like, why didn't you think of Fairfax, South Dakota? And they're like, well, because I didn't know that. And he's like, see, you don't have free will. Like, no, they didn't even know that existed. And that basically, if that blows your mind, then that makes me not believe in free will, that something so goddamn stupid could blow your mind. Because what you're basically saying at that point is that anything short of omnipotence is determinism.
Yeah, that's basically what it says. And it's not talking at all about there is a likelihood that you could choose one or the other, because if you did choose one or the other, that was always what was going to happen. I guess some fart that happened across the world a year ago made me land on this way when I could have gone that way on any sort of decision. And I don't think that's even actually factored in there, because I think it really is 100%. I mean, the moment of free will is making a choice, is choosing. And they just keep announcing this thing of stand up and give yourself a second to choose. Like, you can, since you now know that there's no free will, you can now choose to change people and it just goes like, well, then you're not talking about the same thing I'm talking about. You're talking about, like, basically, like we pointed out yesterday, it's kind of closer to Evo Psych, which these people also generally don't believe in Evo Psych because it's a right wing or something. But Evo is just, you are going to be integrated into what your physical being is, what your physical evolutionary being is, and you're going to have to choose things within what a being that is you on an evolutionary timescale could possibly choose. But within those things, at any given moment, there's a moment where you must choose one way or choose another way, and that moment of choice is what I'm talking about. Is like, did you have a choice to choose one or choose the other? And if it's just talking about, no, you could only choose things that a human being could choose, I feel like we're not talking about the same thing. We're talking about different categories. But I think they get that scrambled up too in their heads, because like they talk, it's like, it sounds like a justification for, well, things were always just going to be how they could have been and would have been, but let's go change everybody. It's nonsensical. I hate the whole debate and discussion, because I think it just does not calculate the entirety of the universe. And if you say the entirety of the universe was just always going to go this way, fine, but so what? So what? There's absolutely zero you could ever do to actually calculate it. So there's just too much at play. There's too many variables. There's too many things. And I don't know. So did we destroy free will? Did we get it over?
So then, like, I mean, I guess the rest of it was hooray divorce, and Mormons get everything wrong, unlike us.
Yeah, and the Trumper, I mean...
Oh, yeah, Trump. Oh, yeah, no, I mean, we already heard the part about the only reason white men only vote for Trump because of power. That's what that is.
And I didn't understand her. So her thing with white women was white women will constantly give up their power for proximity to power. I was like, what?
That's
unlike
that's an old trope. Yeah.
I know, but that sounds patriarchal. Like, that sounds like the dudes they're fighting against. That's their view, that like women actually prefer a proximity to power over power. So they'll just go to that because they're naturally the second best.
It's just their nature.
Yeah, it's just in their nature. You guys sound like the fucking red pillars.
But remember, there's no difference between men and women. I guess they're just...
There's no difference. Also, did you know that women might be better at long distance swimming, but there's no difference.
Women are more relational. Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, this could all just tie in together, because there's just such a confusion from the collectivist leftists about what the hell they're talking about when it comes to the science between the sexes and evil psych versus biology versus... Then suddenly, if you go and buy the no free will thing, it's like, I don't get how like the full determinism can't be full on. You are just your biology, but at the same time, they have the cognitive dissonance to say there's no differences between the biologies, but there's no free will. But we don't believe you when you say there's differences between the sexes. Like, God damn it. The cognitive dissonance is so much stronger than what I ever heard from any sort of religious person. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson on...
Well, so I guess to Britt's credit, what I will say, this is a little off topic, I guess, but I think she sees the problem with nihilism and she wants to fight it, but like she chooses to fight it with just further nihilism, I think. So it's basically just taking it to its logical conclusion of, so a lot of nihilists will be like, oh, it's terrible because everything's terrible and there's so much suffering, so I should be a vegan, right? I should stop suffering because of vegan. And then she uses nihilism to say that actually doesn't matter because the process that it takes to get your vegan shit kills even more animals. Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, I guess I should kill myself because then I would stop it. That actually doesn't matter because the net pain that you would cause is even more because then your loved ones would suck. It's like, oh, okay, well, crap. So it's basically she just takes the nihilism's whole thing as nothing matters, and she says, and neither does nihilism, which I guess is better than just thinking nothing matters. Is including nihilism in the stuff that nothing matters. But it's just so fucking dumb because then you just go full circle to thinking, oh, yeah, that just shit matters. So none of this was important. None of this thought process, this hell spiral I just went through, none of it was important because I ended up back where I started. And it's the same with free will because you cannot act as if you don't believe in free will. Like nobody acts as if they don't believe in free will, and there's no real nihilist, not a single one, because
that guy in that movie.
As soon as you put a flame to somebody's hand, they jerk it away because that pain matters to them. Like, oh, you're not actually a nihilist. You give a shit about stopping the pain that happens to you. So fuck off with this. You're going to end up right back where you started, and you wasted all that time just bitching about how nothing matters and how you don't have free will.
Earlier today, I had a no free will when I somewhat impulsively ordered a new guitar that arrives on
Whoa.
Wednesday.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What guitar?
GNL Tribute ASAT Classic. It's the GNL Korean-made Telecaster style, but with the P90 style pickups. But you can't say Telecaster and you can't say P90 because of all the things. Like it's funny because like in the like catalog, online catalog, they call it T style because they can't say Tele style, even though it was the same shape designed by Leo Fender, who invented Telecasters. But there's a weird thing. Like when Leo Fender sold Fender, like there's some kind of to CBS in '65. There's some kind of weird deal where he lost all of his trademarks. Fender kept all the trademarks, but Leo Fender was allowed to keep his shapes. And I think that part of that is the knock on why anybody can knock off a Telecaster or a Strat, and it's not like an intellectual property thing. You just can't call it Telecaster and Stratocaster. But yeah, it's some kind of weird thing. But it's coming Wednesday, and I'm gonna have no free will when it comes. And
I like Troy's comment. One of my pet peeves is that the Exmo New Atheist checklist includes reading Sam Harris on free will, but not Daniel Dennett.
Yes, Daniel Dennett. Daniel Dennett. I mean, I think if I understood how Troy described it with Jonathan, it does kind of like encapsulate all that stuff of like you're stuck inside of what you are and who you are and what you're born as. But within that, there's choices that you can make, So, I mean, just basically kind of like what we're saying, that this confuses me. And I don't like how Sam Harris puts it, but even if they are making a case for what they're making, they need to describe what choice means, because there is no choice. If there's no free will, how are they choosing to do something? That's already done. That part was already done. Even if you did it, it was pre-done before you did it. So if you have no free will, it doesn't. So they said a lot more goofy things in this, and I have them kind of listed out here. Hold on, I'm trying to. So in the first 5 minutes, they said all the buzzwords that make me want to beat my head against the wall. But nuance, deconstructing, lost free will, nihilism. Just like you said, Jared, like both of the things are like they take the Rubik's Cube, they mess the Rubik's Cube all the way up, put the Rubik's Cube all the way back together, and then go, look, I got a Rubik's Cube. Like, thanks. I was joking with you guys that whenever I want to go on a podcast with somebody or something, I just want to tell them that's a good question to every goddamn question they ask. And I know people do that because sometimes they're just like saving time or something like that. But every question, especially questions that are like obvious questions that you're going to ask, like, what do you think about the election that just happened? That's a really good question.
I hadn't considered considering the election.
Yeah. Religion and patriarchy. Every single religion and patriarchy. So she did say, as election results, I don't believe in free will. So everybody kind of acted how I expected everybody to act. White men who feel threatened acted the way that I expected them to act. White women who historically give up their power to proximity or power did exactly how I expect them to act.
That means that Donald Trump has no free will.
Yeah.
So you can't blame Donald Trump for any of the things he does or says. Yeah. He has no free will.
That's sort of the spiral that I always send the determinists in anytime they want to talk about, like, want to convince me of something. I'm like, I don't have any free will. Okay. So this is just the opinion that I'm going to have. And like best case scenario, you can find the correct combination of words that would be the variable that my non-free will needs to flip into something else. But like, you don't have the free will to decide what that is. I don't have the free will to change it. So we're just on a track. So why are you trying?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. It's so irritating to me. The one positive I give to Brit about that stuff is that she does try to frame to people that that the other people aren't just ontologically evil. They also are likely making their decisions based off of something that is a concern, that they think that they're taking care of something the same way that they think that you're taking care of something. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that of her, even though it probably usually falls on deaf ears. But
No, I appreciate that because I've seen so many people in the last few weeks since the whole Trump thing say like, well, apparently at least half of America doesn't love, like, they hate women. They're not for women's rights, and they don't care about democracy. It's like, did you think for a second maybe, like, let's say that democracy and women's rights are both in peril and Trump's gonna fuck them over? Do you think the people who are
Why are you
voting
posting
for
that as a
him?
hypothetical when everybody knows that we're heading to Handmaid's Tale?
Do you think that the people who voted for him like agree that women shouldn't have rights and that democracy sucks, or do you think that maybe they're just mistaken? Maybe they don't think that he's gonna demolish democracy and women's rights.
yeah,
Like, I don't know. My nephew is posting all just kinds of standard anti-Trump propaganda shit, and he says all this stuff, about like, oh, they're like, why would you want to spend time with somebody who votes against your interests and all this crap? And I don't know, I'm not gonna talk to him. I'm just like, man, I'm like, okay, dude, you and I both know my uncle. You and I both love my uncle. He's a Trump supporter. He's a lifelong Republican. He voted for Trump. Do you think that he hates gays and brown people and all this crap? Like, think about this for a second, because like you're smearing all these Trumpers as this thing, and yet like some, and he is the best, nicest guy in the world, and like it's just, but like so he's not seeing that cognitive dissonance there, because like I can tell that like I don't know, he's autistic, so I think he can be talked around if I wanted to try, but
It feels
I
like
gotta
the difference between people you can reason with versus people that you can't reason with is having a high versus low bar of what constitutes hatred, right? Because I think gay people should be allowed to be married. But if you vote against gay marriage, I don't necessarily think that's because you hate gay people. Like, I think that you're incorrect. I don't think that you hate gay people. I don't think you're a hateful person. I don't even think you're homophobic. Like, the level of behavior you would have to exhibit for me to say that you hate gay people is like basically just look at anything that you said during COVID and say it about gay people instead of anti-vaxxers. And then that counts, right? Like, if you say that gay people shouldn't be allowed to go to the grocery store until they get their straight card, you're homophobic. I'm comfortable saying that.
yeah. It's just what I say is that they don't think about like what it says about themselves, because I mean, at least she gives room that they come from a place of wanting to be helpful in certain situations, but then they just like assume that they're right though still, and that those people must be retrained.
That cutting them off is probably going to make them entrench deeper into harmful mindsets. It's gonna, when an authoritarian leader,
they need you to stay and save them, Sam. They need you to save them from what they didn't have free will to choose.
Like
What's
Trump demonizes
the nuance Sam has ever said.
As liberals, it's going to allow them to more easily lean into that, as opposed to like if you're
having a relationship with you where that's harder to take.
It's like you're almost giving them authoritarians a gift in terms of like them being able to rob you of your humanity in the eyes of others. Whereas if you can treat people like they're more than their beliefs, that I think is a lot more likely to get you closer to them realizing that they're more than their beliefs. Because it's like when people feel like they are only their beliefs, and every time they see you, you only want to talk about your beliefs, then that's going to make them cling harder to that identity.
Yeah, I think that's an area people ask me, like,
I'm only my beliefs. Like, this whole thing is just a big dumb straw man. I'm only my beliefs.
Wait a minute, you don't do that? You don't like walk around thinking that I am a far right racist Republican who would die for Trump?
All I am, yeah. Well, what else could I be? I have no free will.
The the benefit of not believing people have free will, and to me that is one of the benefits, is that if you understand human nature, then you can understand the more effective buttons to push, and not in like a manipulative way, like I'm a puppet master, but in a way of like, if I want to have a positive relationship with my family, then cutting them off forever to punish them, is that going to actually get to what I want, even though it feels really good in the moment because they are being really shitty and all the things. And so, yeah, I do think that considering human nature and working with the brain rather than against it has actually made and
You're the one with the free will working on those bots into getting the right ideas, which is once again just the general precept that I brought back. The like drives me crazy about the left. Like they lose an election and all their thoughts will turn to not how do we appeal to those people again, it's how do we engineer those people. You know, it's that's the exact diametric thing that's going on between like the two sides right there.
How do we get them to feel the spirit?
But that's actually I keep watching Alan Lichtman because he fascinates me, right? His keys, like he doesn't I don't think that the keys are bad, right? He's got the 13 keys, and if you have 7 of them, then you're definitely going to win or whatever. That's the idea. And if you apply those keys to like the last, I don't know, like 60 elections or something like that, then they work every time, except for 2000. He still seems to think that he got 2000 right because he's an election denier, which I thought was bad, but apparently isn't. Anyway, he when he got that election wrong, I was like, man, it's going to be interesting to see what he says, because he's got really 2 options. He can say the keys are wrong and I fucked up, which I didn't think that he would do because the keys are based on his entire life. Or he can say, I let my bias cloud my judgment and I misinterpreted the keys, which I thought that was the more reasonable answer, because some of the keys involve things like one of them is a charismatic incumbent, and he gave that to Kamala Harris. He called her charismatic, and I'm like, I don't care if you like her.
She's not even really an incumbent. Like Trump.
I know she isn't really an incumbent, but and then she and one of the other keys is a non-charismatic challenger, and he gave that to her. Like, you can't call Trump non-charismatic. That's insane. So he did a bunch of stupid calls and there's several of them that he did just piss poor, just stupidly. And I think if he would have followed the keys in the way that he was supposed to, in the way that would make sense, it would have said that Trump's definitely going to win this, but he decided to be biased. So I thought he could do one of those 2 things. One, deny the keys, or deny his interpretation of the keys. But he actually didn't do either of them. He just said everyone's stupid. That was his whole thing. He's like, actually, the keys are dependent.
He's the Principal Skinner meme, just in.
No, he seriously is the Principal Skinner meme, because he said the keys are dependent on electorate that isn't fucking stupid, and the electorate is fucking stupid, and it's because of misinformation. It's basically Elon Musk's fault.
Am I wrong? No, it must be the entirety of the United States.
Yeah, it must be all of America. You fucking dumbass.
Let me finish this, but I mean, I think that's just the general point, is that they can have some feelings of understanding, but we also must socially engineer these people. The only reason we would want to stay in contact with them is we must engineer them back into our way of thinking.
Well, you know what? The bar of hatred that I was talking about, like the bar of what I call hatred is a lot lower than these guys, or a lot higher than these guys. So like, it's just a thought experiment. Who in history would your brother have to vote for you to cut him out of your life?
Me? No,
yeah.
There's no freaking chance. Like nobody could have, like, the concept of the vote being something that would last longer than, like, really, you goof ass?
Like I'm even saying, like, Voldemort comes, like Darth Vader comes down and says, I'm gonna force choke all the black people. Like, he's promising
imaginary choices. You're including imaginary.
Yeah,
choices.
I'm including just batshit crazy scenarios where, like, Darth Vader comes down and he's racist, and I'm like, I'm gonna force choke all the black people to death as soon as I get into office for no reason other than I'm racist. And your brother's like, oh, he makes a lot of good points. Do you cut your brother off then? Like,
Well, I guess that's what these guys imagine is the situation that they're in.
Yeah, no,
Even
that's
though
what
they
I'm
never
saying.
stop to realize that the other side, like they said, you realize that these people talk badly against me. And the truth of the matter is that Trump and those guys don't say half the shit that you guys say about white men that you say in this like very podcast.
No, so that's what I'm saying. That like as bad as it would have to conceivably be in your wildest imagination for you to cut off your brother based on him voting for somebody evil, that's as bad as they think this is. It's fucking mass psychosis.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess there's that.
Like, just again, like Donald Trump is the only person who ever ran for president who has been pro-gay for our entire lives.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing where like the Trump is somehow anti-gay. Like Barack Obama was elected on a anti-gay marriage platform.
These people have pointed out before, I'm surely not the first, Trump and his entire cabinet, except for maybe 2 people in the year 2004, were all Democrats. There's not one in there that wasn't a Democrat in that year, you know, and it's just goofy.
It's not that
more of this one. I mean, she's just saying more of that. She talks about women are more relational, which once again drives me nuts every time. And then that gets to this Neil deGrasse Tyson thing, which maybe switch to it. But I think it kind of goes in line the way these guys talk about free will. And then because you're encapsulating it in that free will concept and it's Sam Harrisy, you're allowed to suddenly talk about biological differences, I guess. But my guess is that if we poked you about biological differences, you would not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole or Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Hey, Britt, let's do race and IQ next.
Ooh, that's like you have to be into what's called HBD, which is something that only the naughty naughties do, except I don't get how like talking about this stuff isn't the same thing as HBD. What's HBD is human biodiversity.
What?
Yeah.
People are different.
But if you talk about it, you'll be called like an HBD bro and all that sorts of stuff. Look at this.
Oh, no, like
Genetic Literacy Project. Many people believe human biodiversity is alt-right code for embracing racism.
No way.
Yeah. If you go talking about human biodiversity, it's white nationalist stuff.
Reality is a
mobilized genetics, human biodiversity, evolutionary foundation. Like it's, you know. But if you encapsulate it inside of free will, I guess it's suddenly all back on the table. But I don't know how Neil deGrasse Tyson will take it. I don't know. Let's take a look.
Give me the money, okay?
You got America, Scientific American, the magazine. I remember when it was around when I
grew up with it. Yeah,
grew up with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, their editor had to quit. You saw this?
Yeah, I heard about it because she expressed some opinions. Right.
Dude,
Okay.
what a fucking hack.
It didn't sound scientific. It didn't sound like the person I would want to be running Scientific American.
Okay.
It was a rant on Twitter.
So right off the top, I want to take note of the fact that what we're experiencing right here is minimizing from Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's saying, oh, she had to resign because she expressed some opinions. Again, downplaying that she was tweeting out about how everybody's fascist, clearly and obviously deranged partisan opinions. And the reason why Scientific American decided to force her to resign over this is because it's fine to have all those left-wing beliefs that permeate through the magazine consistently over years, because this is an institution that has been conquered by the left wing, but you can't make it too obvious when you're posting stuff like this as your form of opinion. So that is what they were actually outraged over, which Bill Maher ends up pointing out later on. And this is actually not the main issue at hand, for however you think those opinions were Trump deranged or not.
It sure didn't sound scientific. It didn't sound like the person I would want to be running Scientific American.
Okay.
It was a rant on Twitter. Okay, I could read it to you. It's really ugly. You know, I apologize to younger voters that my Gen X is so full of fucking fascists. Okay, I'm not.
Okay. I'm not gasket right there.
I'm not for.
All right. Yeah.
I'm not for canceling anybody on either side.
So again, Neil deGrasse Tyson gives an awkward laugh right there and then goes back to minimizing. And I will just point out a couple of things. First and foremost, younger people, Gen Z, actually voted more in favor of Trump than in previous years. But of course, you have this deranged individual that Neil deGrasse Tyson, by the way, agrees with 100% on politics. That's why he's laughing about this. That's why he's trying to dismiss this. And she was just ranting again baselessly about the so-called fascism that's all around and all this other nonsensical garbage that she is putting forward. And again, this is not a problem if those are her beliefs and they're somehow separated from Scientific American, the magazine. But as Bill Maher points out, they're not separated from the magazine. And what she should have been fired over was the content of this magazine, because it is clearly and obviously partisan, political, in a left-wing direction, just like the rant that the editor had put out.
Yeah.
So but here's what I think is the scandal. This is in Scientific American.
Yeah.
Less than a year ago. Inequity between male and female athletes is a result not of inherent biological differences between the sexes, but of biases in how they are treated in sports. That's nuts. And it sure ain't scientific, and it's in Scientific American. And that's why the Democrats lost the election. It's true.
So look, there is a lot of truth in what Bill Maher said right there.
I'm gonna fast forward to the other stuff and skip out some of his commentary.
And that's why the Democrats lost the election. It's true.
Bill, every 20 minutes on your platform, you come up with another reason why the Democrats lost. You already have the answer. They lost the election. So anything you say
That's
is
not
why
true.
they did it.
First of all, you don't watch the show, so you don't know. I know you don't, and it's okay. If you do,
I think like, it's amazing, like, because Mr. Scientist there just tried to bluff Bill Maher, and Bill Maher watches Bill Maher's show, so Bill Maher knows, like, and he called his bluff, and it's just so pathetic. Like, you're a fucking scientist, and you are pretending to know shit that you don't know, because Bill Maher is right. You don't watch that show, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and like, you have an idea that you got from propaganda. And like you know, what is it, the motivated reasoning? You wanted an out, so you bluffed. And I love that, like, that Bill Maher just called him right. There's like, no, you're wrong, and you don't watch this show.
They've gotta have some shit on Neil deGrasse Tyson, because wasn't he Me Too'd?
Well, no,
Yes,
I'm
he
saying,
was multiple
like,
times.
You reminded me. I forgot that he had been canceled. And like you say, like, oh, he's been
like,
that's why he's talking like this.
He is not dumb enough. He is not dumb enough to, when somebody says that there is no inherent biological advantage of males over females in sports, to not be like, that's stupid. Like, he's I don't think, like, he's not a genius, but he's a smart guy. I don't like saying that he's a smart guy because he's cringy as fuck, but he's smart.
Yeah.
He's not stupid enough.
He's got a PhD in physics, although I did watch a thing where somebody actually reviewed his PhD thesis. And, you know, the fact is that, like, you know, as far as physicists go, he's pretty mediocre, you know. But, you know, he got it. He got the math. There's no slouch.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that anybody above room temperature IQ, when you expose them to the data of even, it's not even like, people can be in denial and say that no, women are just as good at sports, but the second you tell them, so the best WNBA team could beat the worst NBA team, they'll be like, oh fuck, you're right, that was my bad. But you can't do that.
Yeah. Here it is. I mean, it was multiple times. I know the first time, and they're full, like, sexual assault allegations. So there's as much credibility to these as the sexual assault allegations to Trump. Hate to tell people, which is, this happened 30 years ago.
Well,
Anything you can find to prove this?
Well, except for these sexual allegation, misconduct allegations have not been dismissed in a court of law like Trump's has.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, goddamn guarantee women throw themselves at him all the fucking time.
Oh, for sure.
My ex-girlfriend, her crush was Neil deGrasse Tyson. She told me so. That was her celebrity crush.
Well, do you remember?
She's not the only one.
You remember Cara Burrell talking about, like, when people were trying to say, like, that you would like, oh, there's some shady sexual shit going on between Cara and John, and I don't believe that stuff because I haven't had any reason to believe it. But her response was like, oh yeah, every 30-year-old attractive ex-Mormon woman is going to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to fuck John DeLynn." And I was like, "What are you
No,
talking about?"
That's
No,
well within the realm
John,
of possibility.
yeah, John DeLynn could pull some pussy if
Yeah.
he wanted to. He did.
Older
by the
men
way.
older men with great social power. That is what
Yeah,
women are attracted to.
endless
Like-
amounts of them. But we're sitting in the week as well that Conor McGregor lost a liability lawsuit, which that stuff's getting all kind of spooky. That now I guess rape is all a civil liability case now. Like they're no longer criminal; it's civil liability, and you just have to pay it out if someone goes and cries. It turns out that the woman who accused Conor McGregor has accused multiple different guys of the same.
What's the actual?
and
so
she was
what's
married,
the actual?
No, that's the Hegseth guy.
Oh, that's the guy. Oh, that's someone else.
What is the actual standard of preponderance of evidence?
Nothing. Just a court.
It's just like I think it
12
could have
people.
happened.
And under like the Me Too era where everybody says you must believe all women, and you have a courtroom of like 12 people who say I must believe all women, that's the preponderance of evidence. That's what it is right there.
That's man, that's that I really broke one of my big breaking points. I was already broken by then. The Alex Jones thing. I've listened to almost no Alex Jones, right? But when they fucking demanded $1 billion from him, that's insane. Was it $1.5 billion?
Yeah.
That Jesus, that's wild because the at most you can prove that he was really fucking wrong.
Yeah, but also like that's not illegal.
It's not illegal to lie, right?
Not to mention you could pull up a million other examples of people
Yeah.
saying things wrong that the other people could say,
never-
"Oh, this hurt me." You know?
He didn't say, he didn't incite anybody, and like that's the other thing. It's like this whole idea, like, because like, yeah, it's true that lying propaganda can cause real world harm. Reference the George Floyd riots.
Yeah.
Reference BLM. Like, yeah, but I still wouldn't put fucking BLM in jail for spreading their dumb lie.
Would you?
Like,
So would
this
you
is
put
just
the
where,
guy?
like,
Would
you just wish that you had a robust and legitimate journalistic atmosphere where you could just, because that's the thing. It's like, I have this fantasy where NPR is an actual journalistic outfit, and like they do stories about, because they're always doing stories about Republican conspiracy theories, and good for them. You should do stories like when people are propagating mistruths, the duty of journalism is to correct it. Unless it's mistruths about, I don't know, young black men being hunted for sport by police. Like, no. They won't correct that story.
We've already learned that if you're a black man and in Harvard, hypothetically speaking, if a black man that worked for Harvard studied this, fully thinking that he's going to find evidence that black men are hunted for sport by police in America, and then he found out that actually they're statistically insignificantly less likely, but pretty much in the same ballpark, to be unarmed shot by the policeman. What do you think would happen to that? Hypothetically speaking, what do you think would happen to that Harvard professor?
He'd get a prize, and he
for sure.
He'd go on The View, and they'd talk to Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar about. I have wonderful news, you guys. That it turns out that American police are not actually racist, and as far as we can tell, they are in general applying the law equally, irrespective of class and gender and all this other stuff, which is the classical liberal principle that we all value, right?
You'd think that would be wonderful news, right? You'd think that the people who shout Black Lives Matter would be like, "Oh my God, you discovered that they actually aren't hunting black men for sport? That's amazing. We're so happy." Except now we're not going to make any fucking money.
Every supremacist ideology is powered by a persecution fantasy. Like that's you don't get supremacist ideologies without a persecution fantasy. Like the two things are hand in hand. For feminists it's patriarchy. For BLM it's whiteness. For Nazis it's Jews. Like it's all a fantasy. None of it's true. None of it's obvious. Like you have to ignore reality in order to make it work, but that's why it's religion.
Troy says with Back to the free will. Essential error in the compatibilists make is thinking of free will as binary. They either have it, or you have none, which is silly. Free will is more like self-control. You can have some. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the thing. If you ask one of them, do you do you think like a cat has less free will than I do? I feel like most of them are going to be like, well, yeah, probably has a little bit less, or like an amoeba has significantly less. Like, well, then it exists to a degree, right? Like because you're the incompatibilist whole thing is it doesn't exist at all. That was
Like-
I have you ever watched that Dan Dennett sit down or listen to the Dan Dennett sit down with Sam Harris?
Oh yeah, the one way
That's-
back when Dan Dennett kind of lit into him. Well,
Yeah,
he
I've
lit
listened to
into
like
him.
it's
He lit into
amazing.
him on writings at first, and then they had like a sit down afterwards.
Yeah.
But
Like,
it was like 2
I've
years
always,
later.
you know, like just talking about animals and free will, because I've always like the mystery of my life is how do dogs decide where to poop? Like when you walk your dog, and they're like, because like especially I remember I used to walk my friend's dog, and he was so particular because like you could tell because he hadn't been out all day. I knew he had to crap, and yet like he had some kind of system where he's like, okay, this is the place today. And it was, what are they doing? Because like, like I don't, because some dogs just let them out and they go, but this dog was so weird, and I like trying to understand it.
Did you know
Well,
that dogs,
you see,
dogs do poop, aligning themselves with north-south axis of the Earth's magnetic field?
It's crazy.
What?
Like I wonder, like
dogs tend to
there's, like,
look.
I think there's a little bit of evolutionary.
Yes,
like,
dogs tend to poop
yeah.
in certain direction, aligning their bodies along the north-south axis of the Earth's magnetic
I've heard
field.
that. But because the other thing is like, and I think like there's even like my cat. Every once in a while, when I get up to pee in the middle of the night, she will hunt me and she will grab me and bite my leg on my way from the bathroom to my bed. And she doesn't do it every night. And I think like she's like evolution has somehow given her the ability to pick it enough times that I don't plan for it. Because if she did it every night, then I'd be watching out for her, right? But she just does it just enough to where I'm lulled into a sense of security that's false, and then she picks her moment and then attacks me again. It's like, but she's picking somehow, but I don't know.
Now my cat does that all the time. Well, not all the time. You're right. It's like every now and then she just jumps out and claws the fuck out of me.
But like, yeah, they do it just enough so you're not on guard.
Yep. Well, she used to be insane when she was younger.
Troy also says 10 years ago, Degrasse Tyson was a cool pro-science public figure, but since then, he seems to have let his enjoyment of celebrity shape his view, but it's cost him credibility. I 100% agree with that because I don't know how much like the Me Too thing played into it, or it's just that he liked being the guest host on Bill Nye the Science Guy's podcast that I used to listen to 10 years ago. And Bill Nye just himself, remember he did that Netflix thing about like, it's cool with the song.
That was bad.
Dudes, there's a cool new thing in town. Oh god, that killed me. But this stuff kind of like comes up because I don't know if I get into detail about it, but I guess Jacob released that video calling out John DeLynn, saying that John DeLynn should have a discussion or talk with him, and DeLynn keeps saying to him like, "I want to go on with you." Like, he says publicly like, "I'd have like a conversation with you," but then he always says, "I can't platform you because you're just so mean and rude and bigoted and all that sorts of stuff." But what it really boils down to is like where they feign being afraid of Jacob, that he's mean and rude and bigoted, is because he talks about stuff like this, where Bill Maher's like charging Degrasse Tyson right here is like, Jacob, they can come at him about any sort of truth claim in the world. And it just happened last night on Cultural Hall's live stream where Jacob popped in and Colby Reddish was there and they started saying, "Hey, let's do the debate. Let's do the debate. Let's do the debate." And Jacob said, "Yes, I'll do the debate." So they got them online saying, "Hey, he's going to do that debate." Or he said, like, he set up the premise of just a naturalistic Book of Mormon. And then Jacob just popped in and said, "Also, would you debate transgenderism?" And they go, and then they back out of the debate. They backed out of the debate because Jacob added that in. So they backed out of the naturalistic Book of Mormon debate, and then and it's just this like long thing. Like, why is it not scary for Troy or for Forrest to go talk with Jacob like he's anything different than the Mormons we always knew? And it's just because they have coherent answers to like when he pushes on them on where they're getting scrambled. It's just that simple. Like these guys, like they run away from and they act like outraged. And I really think the outrage just comes from they don't want to defend what they can't defend.
Yeah, well, because that's Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you watch this entire thing, he tries his. I think Troy's right. It's probably less the Me Too thing and more the enjoyment of celebrity, because he's trying to not really enrage either side on this. And there's no real way to do that, because he doesn't like go full defense and say that no, there's no indication that trans women are any better than real women at sports. He just kind of like, meh, you know, meh.
I don't want to dress it. Oh gosh, it's well, who's it hurting? Who's it hurting? Like, what is this? Why do you upset you? Type stuff.
There's only like it's only like dozens of women throughout the country who are losing scholarships. Like, okay, but it sucks. All right, that sucks for them.
Neil, you've spent 10 years.
That's always the same thing I always bring up though, is when they're like, "Well, how it barely happens." Okay, where's the number where you have a problem with it? How many times does it have to happen before you go, okay, that's something we need to deal with?
Neil's the guy who spent 10 years on Twitter pointing out any sort of scientific error in a movie. Like he pointed out that the sky is wrong in Titanic. Sorry, I hate to point it to you, but that's the wrong sky. That's the southern hemisphere, not the northern hemisphere. Sorry to break it to you. Durr. Like you built this whole persona on telling people tough truths that hurt, you know, that go against like whatever their strongly held personal beliefs are. But then as soon as it gets to this, you don't want to touch it. And we know that you don't want to touch it because you're just afraid of cancellation. You know, in his case, maybe both cancellation and the type of you'll get canceled off this podcast and the cancellation of we'll bring back up the Me Too stuff that we hold against.
Yeah, like those charges are never dismissed with prejudice. You can always refile the Me Too charges.
Come back up as soon as you step out of line. Yeah.
It'd be funny, like, to hear the difference. Like, I want to go to the alternative reality where instead of being a little bitch on this, Tyson was like, yeah, you know, males probably have a distinct advantage in sports. And then the next day, it's like, Neil deGrasse Tyson, remember when he raped all those women or whatever?
Tyson rape, sexual assault her. Oh, kick him off the Nerdist podcast channel.
People can't ever do on the show is, and that's fine. But I don't say that. I have very good reasons.
So Bill calls him out for not watching the show and making these proclamations.
Let me fast forward to the next. It's kind of hard because each one of these, like, instead of just being the actual clip for the show, which I would probably get in trouble for, so I have to pull them off of other YouTube shows, then it has their commentaries. Not that I don't like. Go listen to Actual Justice for Warriors commentary on it too, but I'm just trying to get the actual clips.
For it are absurd.
But engage with the idea here. What I'm asking is, Scientific American is saying basically that the reason why an WNBA team can't beat the Lakers is because of societal bias.
So again, Bill Maher asked Neil deGrasse Tyson to engage with the premise, engage with the idea that the reason why a WNBA team can't beat the Lakers, which by the way, I would say a WNBA team can't beat a G League team, it can't beat an NCAA college team, would probably struggle with a good.
You guys, I'm sure you have because you've been around enough, but you've come across like people in the wild who really actually believe this, right?
Oh
yeah. No, I mean, I had that guy at work who told me that he's like the women's soccer team, the women U.S. soccer team is better than the men U.S. soccer team. I was like, well, I mean, like proportionally, right? They're amazing in women's sports, but like the men's team, he's like, no, the women's team should compete against other men's teams instead of the men. No, they would lose. And he's like, no, and I pulled up that article about them losing to like a varsity high school team in Texas or whatever in a scrimmage game. And he's like, yeah, but I still think they'd beat the men. So then you think that the varsity team would beat the men's team, which would make the men's team totally irrelevant. And they would just promote this varsity team to be like, come on, man. You know, this is nonsense. And you know, he was dug in. It was one of those things like Chris was mentioning where you have a really, really stupid position and you're just married to it. And you're like, oh, fuck, I know this is wrong, but now I got to keep going with it.
Which I think is what broke Destiny.
I
Yeah.
got an interview about this with the woman, and her whole claim to expertise is that she does roller derby, so she's a real athlete, right? And I pointed out, like, well, no, the women's national team played against a 13 and 14-year-old reserve team in Texas and lost pathetically. And she's like, that was just a warm-up game. They weren't trying their hardest. It was a warm-up game for the 13-year-old boys too, you dumb bitch. Like,
Do you remember when that guy went and beat I think one of the Williams sisters in tennis got beaten by like the 900s ranked guy or something like that.
oh yeah,
It was Serena Williams said she could beat any man ranked lower than 200th, and I think it was like the 203rd guy or something took her up on that and just kicked her ass while drinking beer.
Yeah, drinking beer and smoking, and I think it was ranked lower than that. Yeah, but
and that's the thing but also just to finish about the women is that we also do know. I mean, you can make a whole bunch of other caveats, but every year there's a celebrity small side soccer tournament that's held by a bunch of different teams, and there's $1 million prize for the winner, right? So there's motivation to play your hardest, and it's 7-a-side, so small side soccer, but a team made up of current women's national team players, the best women in the world, played against a team made up of retired semi-pro players. Like, these are players that retired from the lower leagues in England, and the U.S. women lost 12-0 to old men.
Well, and it's not even
it's
not even shitting on female athletes, because like Serena Williams is an incredible athlete. She's an irritating person, maybe a little bit, but she's amazing at tennis. And you just have to put it in the context of she is an amazing female tennis player. Obviously, putting her up against male is like if we had LeBron James go up against Captain America. Captain America would beat him because he could dunk from half court.
Is that where you could dunk from, for real? I always loved like those things of like trying to get in the actual logistics of the different superheroes, and then you find out that they weren't consistent enough in them.
No, they're never consistent. That's sort of the problem. Even in the even within the MCU, they're more consistent within the MCU, but like outside of that, they're even within it. Like, because at one point, Captain America like kicks he just kicks a military grade Humvee away like it's just nothing. You know?
I didn't realize how many different origin stories for the Joker they were, including different names, different characters. Like, I barely follow this stuff, but when I watched Joker just recently, and so I looked it up because I'm like, wait a second, like I thought he had a different name in the Jack Nicholson one, and then I found out like, oh, there is zero canonicity there. I'm like, oh, okay.
But that's one of the interesting of Heath Ledger's Joker is they kind of worked that in because you found out that he was an unreliable narrator, that he would give different lies of origin stories.
Oh,
so,
yeah. The Joker shouldn't
made
have
him seem extra chaos.
I never finished that. What's it called? I never finished that trilogy. I probably should have.
No, the third. I mean, did you like the third one, Jerry? The Bane one. It's all right.
Honestly, it's The Dark Knight is the best of the three, and by quite a bit. I don't know.
The first one's pretty good though too. The third one,
I think it was just because I was going to mention earlier, I forgot. Because one of the things I want to talk about today was that earlier this week I decided on a whim to rewatch The Godfather, and every time I watch a movie made more than 50 years ago, I just get mad because there's no craft in filmmaking anymore. And that movie is so perfect. No, and there's no CGI.
We got that watching fucking Skyscraper, that terrible Anna Nicole Smith movie, because I think Chris showed the cutscenes or the bloopers basically of her just being coked out of her mind on one of the shows. And I was like, yeah, we got to watch this. And it's just on YouTube. You can watch it. And I remember watching it and being like, fuck, man, this has better practical effects than most of the movies that I've watched in the past 10 years.
Yeah, it's sad. Like the new Gladiator, I don't think I'll be able to watch that just from how CGI'd up it's going to be. Like they say, they're just like a bunch of CGI monkeys, and as soon as I see CGI like that, like I just get taken out of stuff so fast. Anyway, back to this. I didn't want to go off on a tangent of like the Marvel strengths and difficulties, and but there was something I was going to say. Never mind.
I hate comic books. That's what it comes down to. Is I hate comic books. I'm constantly like, look, I watched what your powers were in the last one, and there's no way this guy should be able to beat you. Like I don't know, that whole the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game. Everyone was shocked that it was bad, and I'm like, yeah, it was worse than it should have been, but also it doesn't fucking make sense that Harley Quinn should be able to lead a team that could beat a team led by Superman and manned by the Flash and the Green Lantern and like all these people. Like she's like, I'm crazy and I kill people and I'm really good at doing back handsprings and I carry a baseball bat. I was like, okay, but like hit Superman in the head with that baseball bat and it's nothing.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
On Bill Maher's show,
That the reason why an WNBA team can't beat the Lakers is because of societal bias.
What you're saying is not Scientific American.
Oh, I was going to say one of the first women because I'd heard this stuff in crappy college like years before, and I was like, come on, goofballs. And then I got out of it. But one of the first women who I met who truly, really thought this, she sexually assaulted me. If you can remember, Flip, well, that is if ass grabbing is sexual assault, but she grabbed my ass out of nowhere. She worked with us and thought that if women were just trained to like football from a young age, they would be just as strong as men and be beating them. It was do you remember, Flip?
I know you've told me this story.
Dana. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So, I won't go. I mean, that's good enough. There's enough different people in the world. Yeah. But it was she went full feminist and full like Trump derangement syndrome. Some of the first people, like I started telling them like watch it, and she had people pop up and say that they were going to come down to my office and punch me, like some Antifa type people. God. And but yeah, dead seriously believed that if she raised her daughter to believe that she could be a football player, her daughter could be an American football player.
I had a friend who had an argument with another friend. He's telling us about it. And he was my drummer. And he's like, yeah, one of my friends told me, like, it's basically just you have to believe that you can do a thing and then you can do it. And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, that would
dude,
that definitely help. And he's like, no, like, if I actually thought I could do a thing, I could do it. And he was like, could you lift this house out of the ground? And he's like, yeah, if I thought I could do it. And he's like, what? You're joking, right?
Well, it just like gets back to your other point that I guess if they believe it, it'll work better. No, I'm just kidding. That's one of those things. I think I heard Brett Hang, and I wish I could remember the name of the book, but Brett Hang and Brett Weinstein and Heather Hang brought up a book from years ago that started mentioning and noticing that kids tend to not get into authoritarian like collectivist movements if they have some sort of experience in the real physical world and develop some sort of talent in the physical world, which might include like developing a craft, like playing an instrument or something like that, because you face real limitations and you find out what real limitations are. And half of why that stuff's ridiculous to you hear all this sorts of shit, is you go like, asshole, like I was born wanting to be a basketball player and worked my ass off at it. And I almost made the high school team and I worked my ass off at it. Like, no, like some little girl's not going to think herself into being on the NBA better than me, who almost thought myself onto a high school basketball team.
I had to, I think I talked about it last week. I had to break my sister's heart when she was a kid because she's asking me why there's no female NFL players. And I was like, well, just because they couldn't. And she's like,
die.
Yeah, she's like, and she got mad. She thought I was trying to be a dick. And it was very difficult for me. I'm like 16 and she's like, 12 or whatever. And I'm trying to explain to her in the nicest way. No, there's some amazing female athletes, but none of them could do that. They're just smaller and they're not as strong. And she's like, I could be a. And I mean, she was 12, so it's not like she's crazy irrational, and like she's an adult now, so she gets it. But I felt like such a dick having to break her heart that no, you could never be in the NFL. And she's like, well, you couldn't either. I was like, well, no, I couldn't. No, not at all. I might come closer than you, but I'm not gonna come close.
But I think, like, but even if it's a 12-year-old boy, like, hey, I want to be in the NFL one day. It's like, well, on top of having all of the genetic and mental attributes it takes, do you like steroids? Are you
like needles? Like, there is going to be that much. Like the difference that there is between like a female to a male might not be as far, but it's close to, is the difference between a juiced and a non-juiced guy. And yeah, if you're going to want to get there, you're gonna have to like some needles if you want to do that one.
Yeah.
But oh well.
Do you like smuggling fake urine in the pouches strapped to your thighs?
These are the types of things that they don't train you earlier enough that you need if you want to become a long snapper in the NFL. All right.
An editor for Scientific American says that, who no longer has the job. So don't indict a 170-year-old magazine because somebody.
Okay, this is called Scientific American, and they're printing something.
Well, he did not indict them. They put it in there. Like, do you remember like when magazines like this used to vet the living shit out of anybody who like put anything in there? Like, I remember hearing stories of people trying to get a cartoon into the New Yorker, and just like how many millions of people would submit cartoons into the New Yorker like across years, especially when these magazines were more prominent, you know, and how many things got rejected in those realms. And I'm sure that this magazine has a wake of rejected good science in its back because it just wasn't good enough to make it back when it was actually a good magazine. And nowadays they're just dumping whatever the hell in it, you know. Well, if it's politically correct, not whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Because someone enters the cesspool that is social media and then participates in that exchange. So
why can't you
let's talk about science?
Why can't you just say this is not scientific and Scientific American should do better?
Well, does she still have her job?
No, not because of this.
So again, he's like, oh, well, this.
Did he like thinks that as a dunk or something like that? Like they should have their job that it got in.
It's such a dysfunction.
Yeah, but if we had this discussion a month ago, then she would have still had her job after writing this insanity nearly a year ago.
Yeah.
This insane, and Mara tries to point it out to him, like, this isn't what got her fired. And that should have got her fired quickly than what actually got her fired. Like, I would probably can a person for being like, I hope really, Trump
it's the opposite.
Supporters.
The opposite thing happened because it's a scientific magazine, and they should give no fucks about someone's non-scientific political opinions, right? They should care about the science. They should not care about the personal life, right? Because that's what science is all about. It doesn't matter if the guy who discovered the cancer medicine has weird ideas about politics, right? What matters is the science. But here we see like that it's completely backwards, that the institution is totally captured politically. This woman got fired for her opinions and not her bad science. That's backward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find it. I know I have it somewhere, but people put out a list of all the horrendous stories that came out of a scientific magazine just in the past 5, 6, 7 years. But I'll see if I can find it.
What about science? Why can't you just say this is not scientific and Scientific American should do better?
Well, does she still have her job?
No, not because of this. I said the scandal is not her tweet.
That was like a year ago, was it? Which one was a year ago?
So again, Neil deGrasse Tyson's like, oh, well, she doesn't have her job, so who cares? Who cares?
Uh-oh.
It was not her tweet.
That was like a year ago, was it? Which one was a year ago?
I think a year ago, women still couldn't beat men in basketball or any other sport. And it wasn't because of society. You don't see a problem.
Long distance swimming, women might actually have the advantage. You look into that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Maybe long distance swimming.
Are you saying there's a difference?
Yeah, that's what doesn't make sense. How's that?
That one statement refuted everything that she said in her fucking article.
Yeah, he's just jumping right on to saying that there's sex differences there. So what if they're better than that? There's a sex difference if they're better than that. But you're allowed to say it if it's a female. Like, come on.
Oh, go figure.
I've said before, just even on here, of like we could design a sport that favors things that favor female physicality and biology. Like you could probably like create some sport that requires some sort of color and pattern recognition.
Like if we had like competitive cookie baking.
Yeah, I was trying to be more on the
Oh,
sense of like what actual biological advantages they might have that are
Olympic
observed.
level nagging.
Well, hang on though. I've actually been told that women have a higher pain threshold from men, and I'm not making this up. I know that I think it was my sister. Somebody brought this up in the past, and that's part of why women are better bakers is because they can withstand the hot temperatures and they don't burn and is easily like literally. I heard this crazy crap, but like yeah, like that's why women are better at baking is because they have a higher pain threshold and there's a lot of hot shit around.
Well, it's always funny how it's always something like there's no difference between the sexes. Like everybody can, like women could do anything that men could do, and here's a list of things that they're better at.
Yeah,
I don't know how you don't see the contradiction there.
Also, they're emotionally and intellectually better. Don't forget that.
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
they do a lot more emotional labor in the relationships.
And men should be more like them, even though they're constantly trying to be more like men, according to movies, I guess.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I've looked into it. Yeah.
So again, a total deflection off.
That's
Got
fucking
him. Let's see, what else did they get into here? I thought that was the end of the clip. Oh, he brought up the part later.
You don't see a
By the way,
problem.
long distance swimming, women might actually have the advantage. You can look into that. Yeah.
Maybe long distance swimming.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. I've looked into it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to file you under part of the problem.
Yes,
Brilliant.
100%. That
What's that?
I said brilliant. That was a wonderful answer from Bill. Because like, yeah, you're part of the problem, Neil. You are spreading anti-science political propaganda.
Embarrassing your profession and embarrassing the name of science in the process. Anyway, but all the way back to Brit talking about the free will and all that sort of stuff. Says women are more relational than men. But you remember
It's almost like men and women have different capabilities and different strengths and different weaknesses, and they're maybe on the same team, and they're maybe meant to balance each other out, and there may be a fucking partnership.
No.
Yeah, I'm being ridiculous. I'm sorry. Go on.
Do you remember the big red button talk in this one?
Oh yeah, fucking.
No?
So the big red button is. So I was talking about how Brit fights nihilism with nihilism, which ends with her saying to somebody who's like, "Well, shouldn't I just kill myself?" Then her saying, "No, because you would cause pain to your loved ones, and the pain would be even greater." It's less nihilism; it's more consequentialist ethics, but. She talks in this about the solution to that really is the big red button. And the big red button is, would you press the big red button that would just end all human life right now? Because then there would be no humans around to mourn them. And then the animals wouldn't have to deal with the human shit. And she talked about that with Bill Reel. And according to her, I haven't watched this, but according to her, Bill Reel just immediately was like, oh yeah, I'd press that button. I was like, wait. You would kill your children, Bill Reel? Like, what?
Yeah, what's right here?
Listen to, and I've thought about this question a lot. It's an interesting question to me. And
it is not an interesting question to me. It makes no sense to me. Like, of course, if there's going to be life, there's going to be suffering. And if you want life to exist at all, you got to deal with some suffering. And if you want it to all go away, all the suffering to go away, that stupid little Thanos stuff, like, you know.
And a lot of people, like I had this discussion with Bill Reel, and he says, yes, absolutely, push the big red button, because that would, because that would be a moral good. You would
That's such Noah Harari stuff. Like, I've decided that I can take away all your suffering by killing you. I mean, it's just like the stuff we always point to. I mean, it's Democrat Man from
the Freedom Tunes.
Just make you stop existing. I will cure your suffering by euthanizing you.
What's
Come
the
on.
problem, little boy? He's like, well, I'm poor in a disadvantaged family. Like, well, I'll fix it. I'll go back in time and have you aborted. Problem solved, young man.
If you would push that button in a second, I think you are morally ridiculous. And this is part of the problem that I have with you see people online like still kind of defending Sam Harris and Donald Trump and all that sorts of stuff, where Sam Harris like brings out that trolley problem and says that I don't care if Joe Biden has dead babies in his basement, he's still worse than Donald Trump. I just gonna go, Sam Harris, you just told me right there that if there were a trolley problem in this world, I can't trust you with the triggers because you don't make good assessments. You make bad assessments on like what I should do with this trigger or not. And Bill Real just did that the same here. Like Bill Real, like you frequently talk about what you would do with the church, and frequently my answer to that is you would destroy it within 5 years. Even if it has $200 billion, you would somehow find a way to lose it. And but no, I couldn't trust you with the trolley switch. I couldn't trust you with the trolley switch with society, just like most utilitarian people who get into the Noah Harari horseshit. You guys would euthanize us all for our good. Anyway, we want to talk more about these guys. Weezer, nihilism, sadism, nihilism all the way back to happy nihilism. Politics can be religion.
It's just the fucking big red button thing is hilarious to me, because if you ask me, like I don't think these ideologues ever think of individuals, right? Because when they say that, like, oh, men are dog shit, I'm like, do you have a son? Like, how many women do you think have said men are terrible and the world would be better off without them, who have sons? And I have to assume they're just at that moment in time compartmentalizing and not thinking about their sons, because I think about my son every time I hear a woman say that. I'm like, fuck you. That means my kid. I'm not even offended on my behalf. Like, I probably should be to some degree, but I'm like, my kid is 6 and 3, and they're just nice dudes. Yeah, and you're already saying to my fucking 6-year-old that you think the world would be better off if he just didn't exist.
Brett and Heather Haying yesterday just covered some stuff about Bill Gates and different idiots who want to decrease methane gas in cows by changing cows' gut enzymes. Like that wouldn't be extremely dangerous and stupid.
A plan with no downsides.
Yeah, and it's such like Mr. Burns block out the sun stuff, which Mr. Gates did want to do, which is just ridiculous. He just like lands on those same ideas, but all that sort of stuff, like the Noah Harari of these guys who like get down to the point. Britt at one time in this thing says, I get veganism stuff and I wish animals could do better. Like what? Like we get to a spot where humans can do better because we're smart enough. And one of the big red button questions is, we would kill the humans and then all human suffering would end. And they're like, yeah, but then the animals would all be killing each other. And like, yeah, I wish there was a way we could figure out how to get the animals to do better.
Those damn critters and their nature.
Yeah, and it is kind of one of the problems. Like I said before, this is Schopenhauer stuff, which Schopenhauer stuff is all warmed over. It's westernized Buddhism, which a lot of that different, or Hinduism. I forget which one. The stuff that talks about the samsara and all that stuff, where I told you about like a female is just a witch trying to trick you into making more babies to put into the slaughter machine. That's Schopenhauer stuff. Like all you're gonna do is make the female deer is only trying to trick a male into creating more babies that just create more lion food, and those babies are just sent to hell of this world of being more lion food. And that stuff like so super nihilistic, but Schopenhauer got into like the deep depressing end of it, saying like, Americans take this stuff and warm over. They warm over the nihilism. They talk about it like it's happy dilly stuff. We talked about it with Paul Vanderklay before, where he talks about in that one show where those guys are all Neil deGrasse Tyson level talking like, when we die, we just burn up and turn into stardust. And you go, asshole, like your body being in cinders isn't stardust. That's you on fire and dead.
I've never understood, like, was it Carl Sagan who first said that?
That we are
Who's the
Stardust.
guy?
I think he's the guy
Yeah.
who popularized it.
I've never understood why that could possibly be of any comfort. Like I see all these new atheists taking comfort in that. And I'm like, wait, we already knew that. This is some circle of life shit. Like I learned that in The Lion King. And obviously like the molecules that make up my body will then make up something which will eventually make up something else. And if you get down to it, if you're classifying literally everything outside of the earth as stardust, then sure, I'll be Stardust. Awesome.
It's
Great.
not fairy dust. It's not your fairy times. It's you're on fire and dead.
You're stardust. That's not comforting.
Yeah. Anyway, I couldn't find the exact one. Do you remember there was like some sort of thing about like white supremacists, and they've done so many stupid science things. There was a list of them recently. You read them off at some point too, Jared, of stuff that came out of Scientific American magazine. But I did find this other one that I forgot to bring up this week. This new peer-reviewed paper from Spring Nature Journal uses feminist blue post-humanities to reimagine how brine shrimp are perceived in science, culture, and art. The paper introduces the concept of hydrosexuality to enrich feminist blue post-humanities and feminist biology through art-based practices and queer advocacy. Its use, Flip just got asked just this week, like to prove that there's such even a thing as queer theory. Its use of the hydrosexual perspective challenges settler science by exploring the connections between the reproductive system of brine shrimp and the economy, ecology, and culture. This analysis draws inspiration from low trophic theory and queer death studies. Man, I'm so far behind the time that there's like whole entire departments of queer death studies.
So there's
the conversation I had about queer theory this week had one of my most amazing pieces of kettle logic I've encountered in the last 48 hours, which is because they're like, well, how do you define queer theory? So I link them to a page, an article titled "What is Queer Theory and Why is it Important?" from a website called LGBTQnation.com. And the guy replied, well, fine. If you're not going to answer the question directly, I'm not going to engage with you.
Yeah.
Like, what?
So, one of the Scientific American things that they were talking about, written by this woman, was talking before it was the acronym was DEI. They were toying around with other things. One of the acronyms they toyed around with was JEDI, and it was Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And I know. And she wrote an entire article in Scientific American about how that's wrong because it's patriarchal, and the Jedi in Star Wars are a patriarchal order, which they decidedly aren't. There are females. There are plenty of female Jedi. That you could have criticism. If there was a real Jedi Order in the world, I would criticize them and saying like you shouldn't forbid them from marrying people. The same way that I say to the Catholic Church, you shouldn't forbid your priest from marrying people. But she also mentioned in the article about how they battle each other with phallic shaped weapons. That's in Scientific American. And I'm like, man. It's a sword, lady.
Somebody call Dr. Freud.
Make a sword that isn't shaped phallic.
No way. You're telling me that the feminist sees dicks everywhere?
I bet you 1,000. I'm gonna look it up, and I'm gonna find a feminist article on how the entire reason behind a sword being phallic shaped is like patriarchy, which is hilarious because I'm like, okay, I guess the response to that is to have another warring nation make a vagina shaped fucking weapon to fight, and they'll just get obliterated right away.
The weapon is a giant smelly hole that swallows men alive.
Wait, they had that in there. It's the desert thing.
The Sarlacc monster.
Yeah. So, this paper's in the Journal of Agricultural and Environmental Ethics. Let's read a little bit about the author of Hydrosexual Healing Clinic. Ewelina Jarosz, she, they, is an assistant professor in the Department of Media Culture Research at UKEN, Poland. Her current research explores the intersections of environmental art, queer feminist blue post-humanities, queer ecologies, and activism of pleasure. They are also transdisciplinary collaborative artists working in Cyber Nymphs, art-rich duo with Justina Goroski, and they launched the hydrosexual movement in arts.
It's amazing that like they've managed to take the fun out of having fun.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you've turned having fun into school discipline. Like
the paper also says shrimp have swirly sexuality and claims they can reproduce pathogenesis, which isn't a thing. And they meant parthenogenesis.
I was gonna say, because like pathogenesis, like did she mean parthen? I thought you mispronounced parthenogenesis, but no, it was the dumb lady. AI wouldn't have made that mistake.
The term hydrosexuality emphasizes the more than human sensuality and sexuality, emphasizing fluidity and relationality, and deploys watery thinking to dissolve the hegemonic notion of the autonomous and bounded human subject.
It's a Poe. It's a Poe. It's a perfect Poe. You can't be serious, baby. But
this could have been written by Bogosian and Lindsay, and
yeah.
That stuff's not going to stop. It's not stopping.
No, I know that it's like they took notes from the grievance study hoax, and there's like, we could do better. We could, and by better I mean like we could make more absurd things and publish them in scientific journals.
How stupid can we get?
Because this shit makes the whole fat bodybuilding the last frontier of fat studies. That makes that look downright scientific and intellectual.
Yeah. Anyway, so have you guys followed any of the Wifejack meme stuff?
Yeah.
Not specifically, but I saw you guys posting a little bit about it. Wifejack. I like internet names for everything.
I like the Wifejack meme. I do. Like
it's a funny meme, but
well, no, I mean I find it endearing.
You also know that like supposedly the Wifejack meme is also a Rorschach test on if you like your wife or not. So
well, okay. Well, I like my wife. I'm gonna have her watch this so that she knows that.
They had some stuff where like Nick Fuentes saw it and raged about it because he's like, this is the most pathetic, terrible thing on earth.
You know, I saw it. I saw it, and what it is like the Wifejack meme is the wife, and she's doing things that are like.
It's in our meme, which one of the things I like I think it's hilarious actually myself too. But one of the main things it does, and I tried to put it in the clip of our show or the thumbnail of our show, is just kind of implicit statements actually are kind of requests. You know what I mean? Like stuff like there's boxes in the garage. You know? What's another one like?
Well, it's
there's a spider in the bathroom, so they just like say there's a statement, but the statement has like an implicit like request.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I saw Nick Fuentes raging about it because he's gay, and I was like, I don't know.
He's totally gay.
Oh yeah. The things that I would say that the Wifejack does is it like puts phrases next to the Wifejack that I find endearingly irritating. Is what I would say. It's stuff that like Morgan does this thing whenever we watch his show.
Okay, so here's oh no, like right there in the thing, there's the picture and there's two of her. So notice anything different, and you can't tell that there's no difference in there of them. And what does Morgan do?
Well, she'll do like a thing where a Wifejack thing I would put down is we're watching like a movie or a show. And something happens that is unclear, but is obviously going to be explained later on in the story. And she'll like ask me, why did that guy do that thing? And I'll be like, well, I don't know. It's just I'm positive it's going to be explained later.
Well, there's storytelling device called foreshadowing.
Yeah. It's,
you know, like look up Chekhov's gun, honey. Look up Chekhov's gun.
But it's not something that it's not something I dislike about her. It's something I'll sort of joke about with my friends. Be like, yeah, Morgan does this thing. And that's the I don't know. That's the feeling I get from the Wifejack meme is like things all our wives do that we don't dislike. We find endearingly irritating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one where she just suddenly shows up with her hair cut off.
I can't see it.
That's fine.
It's right here. Right here.
Yeah, that's how you know the divorce is coming.
Or she's just like here sitting in like a warm stuff in front of the television. Yeah, this is the one that says notice anything different and you just don't.
Holy shit, that looks like my ex-wife. That's scary.
That's the thing that's the thing that I never get from Morgan, which I'm grateful for, is the
Look at this.
anything different.
The Fuentes is pepper spray.
Oh, good times.
Yeah.
Wifejack.
Anyway, that's supposedly a Rorschach test on if you like your wife or not, and if you don't, or you could be like a gay fed like Nick Fuente.
Well, I'm gonna just for future reference. I like my wife. We found it out. This is a lot better than the time that you proved that I'm fucking autistic. you proved that I like my wife.
Morgan,
that is autistic, man. There's no greater proof of being autistic than liking your wife.
Yeah, I guess so. I have a submission for Autistic Hero of the Week, and it's a story. I don't have anything I don't have a video. I tried to get one.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So, it was. Do you remember the Autistic Hero of the Week when it was the girl saying like it's a cross because that's what Jesus was crucified on, and the Lord like, it's a T. Yeah. So I had that experience, and I had that experience today at Thanksgiving dinner. I tried to get it on camera, but I couldn't. They were finished. My sister's pregnant. She has 2 kids and she's pregnant. And
you mean someone has forced her into literal torture?
She has fallen. She has fallen with pregnancy. Fallen ill with pregnancy.
She's been inflicted with pregnancy by a Republican.
Yeah. It just happened.
He's a Republican, right?
Oh yeah.
Because that's all. Pregnancies are the result of Republicans.
That's the only thing. Anyway, I was asking her daughter, my niece, I was like, so do you think it's going to be a boy or a girl? And she said, it's going to be a girl and it's going to be named Coco. And my kid, Lucas, is just the most autistic, analytical brain imaginable. He's just like telling his cousin, like, Elaine, you can't know that. And she's like, it's a girl. Like she's pissed off at him. And she's like, no, it's a girl and her name is Coco. She's mad. And he's like, no, it could be a boy. And if it's a boy, it's okay. And she's like, no, it's a girl. And but you don't know that. And I you got my peacemaker kid, August, is sitting there like, guys, we got to stop. And they're just fiercely going back and forth. And I was like, Lucas, it's okay, bud. She can think it's a girl. He's like, but Dad, it might be a boy. And I was like, I know it might be a boy, but you can't explain this to a kid that's a kid. You can't.
One of the most important lessons that I wish that I had gotten from my dad, that every dad needs to explain to their sons. When it comes to the women in your life, just give them what they want. Just do it. It's going to be a girl. That's fine. And when it turns out that it's a boy, just shut up. You know, like I remember, like my friend who's gay, like, and you know, because I was over at his place complaining about my ex-girlfriend being a pain in the ass, and it was just funny because even as a gay guy, he's like, you know, his dad. That's his dad. His dad sat him down, like just do what they ask. It's just easier, which is like, you know, that's the reality. That's the, you know.
I don't know. I feel like that's
Jared just posted in Thoughtful Faith about he thinks one of the worst things ever is happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life is the worst advice ever. I mean, hate it.
I think it depends on the wife, maybe, because you know, this is like with my mom. There's no giving. Like the thing, you know, there is no making her happy ultimately. No,
Sure,
but like I think if you're
but-
basically reasonable woman, like there's just a point where you have to be like, ah, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, on something like that, on the gender of a kid, maybe like she thinks it's a girl, and I don't care one way or another. But
where do we put the curtains? Okay, here.
Which is the best Spider-Man of the 3 recent?
Tobey Maguire.
I don't know because I only watched the ones that were from a long time ago.
What do you mean, the ones like 20 years ago?
Is that the Tobey Maguire ones? Yeah.
Yeah. So which one's the best, just off the top of your head?
I mean, the first one, because it had that line that everybody repeats,
So
the great responsibility.
I too chose Tobey Maguire, and I said that in front of 2 women last week, and I almost lost my life.
Why? What's the right answer?
They think it's Andrew Garfield because he's hot, and it was some younger gal.
Okay, well,
but I said I also had data to back it up because you can pull up on the internet anywhere that most people think it's Tobey Maguire.
Yeah,
and I almost lost my life. And
here's
so
the thing, I feel for Andrew Garfield because he was really good. He's actually a really good actor, and he's probably a better actor than Tobey Maguire.
Yeah,
but the movies were not good. The first one was okay, and the second one was trash. Tobey Maguire had 2 pretty good movies, and then one pretty terrible movie. Andrew Garfield had 1 okay movie, and then 1 terrible movie. And but also, I don't know. Tobey Maguire is better at being the guy that you root for, and is just always down on his luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield, you have a kind of hard time believing that anybody would not give him a fair, just wouldn't roll the carpet out for him,
Yeah, well, Tobey Maguire was better at being a nerd. And that makes sense for Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was a skater punk, which he's not a jock, but he's still athletic, and he still has emo chicks at least are going after him.
Yeah. How about this? Here's some autism for you real quick. But
just a touch of autism.
Autistic man, clearly.
100%?
Yeah.
Why?
Clearly, he's just an autistic guy. He hurt his hand or something, and he just always held it up because he was like, I don't want the blood to go down back to where the cut was. At all times, he was like, dude, put your hand down. He thought God would decide when he died, though he was not afraid of. He would just stand there. That's how he got his name, Stonewall. They're like, look at him, look at him. He's just standing there like a stone wall. He was just getting shot at. He was. There was one that when one of his commanding officers was at attention when he walked by him, and then he came by the next day and he was still standing there. It's like, dude, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm not going to disobey your orders. He's like, all right, dude, you're a psycho. Stonewall Jackson, he was an autistic man, clearly.
I think it's probably interesting to go back through history and try to figure out people who are probably autistic, and we just didn't have a word for it yet because it's probably everywhere. But,
for sure.
I like going back and deciding which women were bisexual. Did you know Joan of Arc liked plaid canvas Converse? And it's because of that I know that she's bisexual.
No, she was trans. She was trans, don't you know that? Because she liked boy stuff, like swords.
Yeah, she did.
She liked male stereotype stuff, so that means she's a boy.
Yeah. I'm so glad we're free. I'm so glad we're free of the gender prison.
Well, how about this?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's a good sign.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, not a lot of craziness. I think it'll be good for everything.
Definitely less. And lastly, am I the asshole for not believing my boyfriend that suddenly became gay due to the altitude difference when he was on a work trip in Utah?
No, that is true.
Yeah.
That's not real, is it?
I think that's real.
High altitude.
Everybody does.
Dude, if you ever go to the top of Mount Everest or whatever, and sometimes you'll see how people die on there or whatever.
How do you think they died? Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll see sometimes there'll be 2 dead bodies doing 2 guys 69ing, and that's how they died.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
That's about a detail that they put into those new modern theories, when they found the Mount Vesuvius stuff and the people were cuddling together and well, maybe the 2 cuddling together were men. Oh.
Yeah, they weren't just trying to save each other from the imminent death.
This reminds me of I think I shared it in the group, but it was from the subreddit Right Wing BDSM.
Oh yeah.
And the title is "Are Trans and Non-Binary People Welcome Here?" And the body of the text just says, "Hi there," in right-wing BDSM. "I'm a queer, poly, non-binary little. I got into kink as a way to explore my fantasy of being someone's little girl. But I haven't felt very welcome in any of the mainstream BDSM subreddits because there's too many blacks and Jews." That has to be fake. Like,
It's
it
a perfect
has to be.
pose.
It is a perfect pose. But I don't think it's real. But I
That is
ascribe
hilarious.
I ascribe to Scott Adams' recreational beliefs. Like I want to just recreationally believe that that's true because it's the funniest thing imaginable. Like a Nazi furry. I wanted to go to the furry website, but there's too many Juden and black people there.
It's not that crazy because, like, I mean, you know, one of the famous things about the Weimar Republic is that it was super into kink, and a lot of that carried over into Nazi shit. So it's not that crazy.
So I'm gonna point something out, just to point it out, just to be the first to point it out.
Kettle Logic guy just responded to me again.
Oh yeah,
there we go.
What is it?
He said, "Okay."
Okay, what are you pointing out?
It might become a thing. We'll probably see this pop up in John Lynn in about a month or two or something like that. But that chick who I told that her utopia is never going to happen, that TikToker.
Oh yeah.
Let me show you her. Where'd she go? Here she is. This is an ex-Mormon TikToker, and we've pulled her up on here a few times because she talks like utopian stuff.
Yesterday, Candace Owens did like this long 25-minute segment about me on her YouTube channel. It was an experience. My husband.
Females of Award Radio will pick up on this and follow it in the near future too as well. So I'm just saying, like, prepare yourselves for this to become a thing, because I don't think many of them have been very familiar with her quite yet. But she is the one that has sold a movie about trad wife TikTokers. And
God.
the movie is starring Anne Hathaway. And I've been showing you guys little posts from her all along because she's always kind of there to say something goofy. And she sold her book.
Is Anne Hathaway the trad wife in the movie?
I think so or not. I mean, I can't. I don't
She's
know for sure.
42 years old.
It might not be exactly her, or maybe she's the reporter or something like that. But I didn't listen to the whole thing. These guys covered it here.
Anne Hathaway is starring in an upcoming Amazon movie called Yesteryear. And this movie is based on a novel written by Carol Claire Burke. I have not heard of this author before.
That is this person who we follow.
Watched the video, and then I finally watched
Carol
the video.
Claire
It was
Burke.
rife with factual inaccuracies, obviously. And I did a long video explaining.
And she and Candace Owens have gotten into a great big huge beef. And I was describing to you guys that one of the things about her and Candace Owens is they work together on that. Do you remember that panopticon thing that Candace Owens famously tried to do before she turned right wing?
I do not.
I mean, I'm only vaguely aware that, like, she tried to be, like, before she was a conservative personality, she tried being a liberal personality.
And when she's a liberal personality, she came up with a website. It was basically a doxing website. Like a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, this is hilarious to me because it's just the two type of people I hate most beefing with each other. I despise Candace Owens and I despise this woman. So it'll be funny to watch them beef at each other.
It's kind of funny though, because I think it's a little bit pre under the nose of the radars of the Wards and the Lins and all that sort of stuff. But it's going to become a thing because they're going to release that big movie about the trad wives. And this she kind of like feigns herself to be a part of like the larger media elite, but she is an ex-Mormon and writes about ex-Mormon stuff and says she has a particularly a particular view and gives all these commie takes on why the trad wife stuff is problematic. But
I've tried asking these people, like, what if a woman is legitimately like happy doing, because that's the thing you purport to care about, is her happiness. Like, what if a woman finds happiness in being not the head of the household, and like not even saying that that's how everybody should be, and it's all just, well, she's been patriarchally conditioned.
Because I always make the joke about make me cookies, and because the thing is, like, I don't think maybe, well, yeah, like even when I was a kid, it would have been a crapshoot. But anytime a woman has ever made cookies and given to me, she just made them. I didn't ask for them. I wasn't like, female, make cookie now. They seem to like baking, and then they seem to like sharing. Go figure.
They like doing nice things for the person that they love.
They get some kind of feeling of accomplishment and gratification from performing a task well and making people happy. Crazy.
I like rubbing my wife's feet. Not because I'm a foot guy, just because she enjoys it. It makes her feel good. It's wild. But if I were the woman in this, if it was she, I don't know, she does that stuff for me too, though it's this wild idea of being it's anytime she does it for me, and so she's patriarchally conditioned for that. And anytime I do it, it's, oh, what do you want? A cookie for doing something nice for your wife? And there's no winning. It's the heads I win, tails you lose shit that we always talk about. But like the quickest way, it's just like how TERFs are hated by trans activists more than I am, even though they get half the equation right. You know, the TERFs at least get the feminism right. I'm trans exclusionary non-feminist. You would think mathematically that they'd hate me more, but no, they hate the TERFs more because that's one of them. It's exactly like that. Anytime you want to piss off a feminist, you just be a woman who does a nice thing for her husband. They get so pissed off when, like, a woman will post a video of herself packing a lunch for her husband. They get so mad at you for that. And they'll be like, oh, he can't pack his own lunch. And like, I'm putting myself in the woman's shoes being like, well, of course he could pack his own lunch, but I love him. He's my husband and we do nice things for each other. This is a thing that I do that makes his life easier because I love him, because we're fucking partners. Like I'm splitting my head in half just trying to explain to people that, no, we're on the same team. Men and women are on the same team. Stop trying to pretend that we aren't.
Well, so I used to try to do this joke, but then I realized that I was dealing with cultists, and so the joke didn't ever land. Whereas I'd say, like, oh, I'm like, you know, a lot of people are feminists, and feminists believe that women can do anything men can do, but I'm an ultra feminist in that I think that women should just go ahead and start doing it. You know, so for example, like if my wife gets a flat tire, I'm not going to belittle her. I'm not going to demean her. I'm not going to take away her power. She can change the fucking tire in the snow and the mud on the side of the freeway. You know, I'm an ultra feminist.
All right. Listen to the premise of the book that she sold. Look, 4 bids from Anne Hathaway, Elizabeth Degradation from the Dish. Anyway. What is yesteryear? Here's the deal. Natalie lives a traditional lifestyle. Her charming farmhouse on a workhouse ranch is rustic, artfully cluttered. Her husband, a handsome cowboy. Her 6 children, each more delightful than the last. So what if there are nannies and producers behind the scene? Her kitchen hiding industrial-grade fridges and ovens. Her husband, the Republican equivalent of a Kennedy. Her oldest daughter beginning to ask questions about whether her mother is a trade wife. What Natalie's followers, all 8 million of them, don't know won't hurt them. And the angry women, the privileged Ivy League coastal elite haters who call her an anti-feminist iconoclast, they're just jealous. Natalie isn't simply living the good life. She's living the ideal of what life should be, and just so happens to be building an empire from it. Then she wakes up in a life that isn't hers. Her home, her husband, her children, they're all familiar, but something's off. Her kitchen is lit by a sputtering fire rather than electricity. Her children are dirty and disheveled. Her soft-handed husband is suddenly a competent farmer. Her daughter informs her it's 1805, where just yesterday, Natalie was curating potatoes, a homemade sourdough for her Instagram. She's now expected to haul firewood and hand-wash clothes until her hands bleed, and she becomes the unwitting star for a brutal reality show. Could it really be time travel? Is she being tested by God, by Satan, already reckoning with forces beyond her control? When Natalie becomes pregnant with her new husband's child, it quickly becomes apparent that it doesn't matter how she got here. All that matters is how she gets out.
How is this a feminist manifesto?
If that would have been like a 1990s novel, she would have figured out to love the real life of it. And
Yeah, I know. This is like something where she's like, okay, I maybe got a little bit caught up in all of the commercialization of this nonsense, and I need to love the trad parts of my trad wife thing. But no, she's gonna be like, oh, this is all patriarchal nonsense. Fuck.
Man, well, speaking of poor put upon wife, Meghan Markle has left her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Prince.
Who could have called that? Who could have seen that coming?
Now, like, and this is the amazing thing is that I guarantee that if he decides to, it's up to him. But I guarantee that his family will take him back. You know, like even
You
after
think?
all that shit, I bet you they do because I think that they're basically
course.
nice people.
I mean,
They
you'd
might
take
go
your
for a
brother.
few years.
You'd take your brother back, right? Like if he did this shit
one
to
thing is,
you.
I
Like,
think that they all understand that it was always the evil bitch driving the ship. You know, like obviously he owes everybody an apology.
I think you and I both know, and there's probably
basically an
more.
adult of one person. You know, like
But there are men who go through this and do not learn the lesson and do it again.
Yeah, that's true.
And we know a couple of them, but not that it means that you're supposed to, just like the voting stuff. No, I wouldn't turn my back on a friend either that did something.
no,
so
I wouldn't even
awful.
consider that. I'd be like, yeah, you were a fucking idiot, and you need to know that. But let's go have a beer, you
Yeah.
fucking idiot.
And then he
I'm
runs off
always-
with another chick just like it, but
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm going back to the South Park quote of like
The double down,
we hear that
double down.
your Instagram loving bitch wife hates privacy. It's like, nah, fuck you. My Instagram loving bitch wife loves her privacy. She cherishes it.
Oh man. Anyway, I said we'd do hard out in 2 hours since it's Thanksgiving. Any stuff you want to cover in the next 8 minutes? Because I do have like tons of stuff because we went fast. But.
I can't.
I'm up for whatever. I don't have anything going on. But
No, I gotta go get Charlie myself. Which, speaking of which, look at Mini Me Charlie right there.
Oh, is that his sister?
That's his little sister. Yeah.
Did you go for
yeah,
it?
you told us.
No. She's not even. She doesn't even want to give her up. She loves her too much. But
that's cute.
yeah. What else? Any
I'm gonna
final?
go hug my dog.
You're gonna go hug your dog?
Yeah, she's a fucking cuddly bastard.
What was the thing that you posted about the biology and sexism in the chess? Oh,
What?
and I got to say, you posted something about biology and sexism in chess.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about this. My name right here, in case people don't know, Jaguar did a rebranding of their stuff, which is, if you go watch the commercial of it, it's just some sort of, I don't know, pride parade or something like that. No car in it or anything like that.
Somebody needs to get Hank Azaria on this. The whole, is there a raw dong lover in here? Raw dong lover.
Because the person from January, the Jaguar managing director who spoke on it, is literally named Raw Dong Glover. Raw Dong Glover. Raw Dong Glover. Wrong Dong Glover. Yeah, you had. I think
what's
you
his
made
dad,
a meme of it.
Monty Python? Like, how did you get that name?
Yeah. What about the chess one?
Oh, there was a video that I watched talking about how, like, it's more interesting than the trans women in sports thing, right? Because the trans women in physical sports thing is just obvious. It's like males shouldn't compete against females in basketball. That's so obvious. And I hate having that discussion. I'm mad that we're in a political climate where that discussion makes sense to have. But in chess, apparently the whatever chess league has forbade trans women from competing against women because for whatever reason.
Well, no, it's I mean, to go back real quick. Chess historically was never closed to women. And there have been women competing in the open tournaments forever, but they don't do very well. And so they created a women's only category so that women can win trophies, which is good. Fine. I'm fine with that. But now the same thing that's happening in everything else is the men who can't, who would never place in a men's tournament. They can put a wig on, say I'm a girl, and then they will win trophies.
Yeah. Well, I think it's fucked up to a degree, but also that one's a little bit more difficult because there's like 3 schools of thought on why men do better in chess than women. The first school of thought is obvious bullshit, which is it's all patriarchal oppression, right? It's societally.
Their daddies tell them you can't.
And
you're not good at chess, little
girl. And that they're bullied because they're women in chess. That's fucking nonsense. But the other 2 make a lot more sense to me. It's like generally chess aficionados are high IQ, and if you look at the bell curve of IQ, there is so the median for male IQ and female IQ is exactly the same. It's just that there's more really, really smart men and really, really stupid men than there are women. And there's more median women than there are men. And like per that hilarious whatever podcast Michael Knowles, when the stupid feminist was like, women are smarter because the bell curve is higher. So that's one school of thought, and then the other is that chess is generally more male oriented because like the big 5 personality traits that go into being really good at chess or to being even interested in chess are more leaning toward men, right? Things like disagreeableness or competitive nature and shit like that's a more male.
Spatial awareness, a little bit of there's a little bit of spatial stuff there, or is that?
Oh, I'm sure. I haven't looked into all of it, but
one of the main differences between men and women and all this stuff, and this was something Jordan Peterson's pointed out for forever, is just simply autistic drive. Like women, and he generally asks that question of like frequently like different men who work the hours to become like top lawyers or whatever. The question is what's wrong with them and not like what's right with them. And what he says, like the reason most women don't get there is because they have more of a work balance in their life. They're not going to autistically destroy their lives, become the number 1 best guy. They're going to get pretty darn good and then say, I'm doing pretty good. And then kind of chill right there. And then that's more normal. That's more human. But then some guy who's just like, I'm going to do all this stuff. Like just putting in getting extremely obsessed with something and putting the insane hours is a generally male trait,
Well, he uses a great example of that is the guy who basically invented the maxi pad. And it was a guy, and it was like he was motivated by his wife's like she's on her period and it's really difficult for her.
Women had 10 billion years of evolution to figure out special underwear for when you bleed out your crotch. And then some autistic guy's like, hang on, let's just put a cloth down there.
Yeah, but he was also like autistically obsessed with it because like he went, like his wife got sick of him. He would put pig's blood on the pad and beg people to wear it to try it out for him. Like he was autistically upset. So yeah, there is an autistic obsession that men have more. And I always tie this back to the whole, why are male comedians funnier than female comedians generally, and I say generally, right? And
evolutionary pressure.
Yeah, evolutionary pressure. That's the exact reason. Like men have more. So it's the peacock feathers, right?
So was it though?
Peacocks.
'Cause, like, did that guy actually, like, I wonder, like, did all the women like, okay, well, now we're having sex with you. You figured out maxi pads, and then they were all just banging down his door. No, I'm guessing he was still just a dweeby guy, unless he got rich from it.
No, I mean he probably got rich from it. I can't remember. But he also like it with comedy. Being really good at comedy is an indicator of high intelligence, which is basically peacock feathers to human women, right?
Yeah.
And so males have more of a motivation to be really funny than females do, because that's one of the things. If you ask a woman what's really important in a mate, oftentimes she'll say that he's funny. That'll be on the list. That's usually not on the list for males. So it's not as much of a motivator.
Here
But we hate evolutionary psychology.
Stupid Americans. We got to make a commodity of everything. Here's Earl Has, the inventor of the tampon, and you can buy a tote bag of him right there.
Awesome.
Earl Haas.
Fucking great guy. Like that's
Earl
a
Haas
great
the
invention.
tampons.
Women should be grateful for that, and we should all be grateful for it. That's an awesome thing that he did.
Did Earl Haas pull ass? Let me Google this. Let's see.
But the whole point of Peterson bringing that up was that, like,
he's called Husband of the Year. Oh man, no way was he getting around.
He's motivated by love. Like, why can't you just give this guy something?
Man, I was hoping he would be a poon hound. Oh, well. This, in case you don't know, Simon Baron Cohen is one of the guys who comes up with this theory, is just that autism in general is extreme male brain. And that's why we generally just kind of joke and call stuff that. Even when a female has it, it's because she will tend to do those things that are generally more associated with male. Autism in the male brain. Simon Baron Cohen, that is the cousin of Sacha Baron Cohen, who's canceled. So he should be vicariously cousin canceled.
I didn't know that.
Sacha Baron Cohen got canceled by his ex-wife, that redheaded lady who was the professional crier on Larry David. She said that he did some naughty stuff to her. Sacha Baron Cohen canceled, but he's got the right politics. He'll be back. Rebel Wilson and Sacha Baron Cohen controversy.
You remember Rebel Wilson?
Oh no, she's the one. She said that he did stuff to her on the set of one of those movies.
That's right, Isla Fisher.
But he also got accused of doing some stuff with his ex-wife, who is that redheaded gal, the Baron Cohen ex-wife, Isla Fisher. Isla Fisher breaks silence a month after Sacha Baron Cohen.
I wonder. Anyway, I woke up at 4 this morning and went to work, so I got to work again tomorrow. So
all good. I need to just call good because I got to go get
Charlie dog.
But
Charlie dog.
Anyway, that was fun stuff to cover, but there was still more to cover on stuff. But we run out of time. So I did just want to the Ben Stiller saying that. We'll just end on this. That he came out in an interview saying that wokeism killed comedy, and
wow.
And then you got Me Too'd the next day.
No, and just Elon dunked on him. He said, then he endorsed Kamala. Damn, he went full retard.
Good times.
I do love the in the post-mortem of her failure, how they're like, well, she didn't do the woke shit for her campaign. It's like, yeah, she just did it every time she was on camera before that.
She
no, she was
in the house.
Woke shit.
You're right, but even if she wasn't, like, she did the woke shit, like she said the woke shit every time she was on camera before her fucking campaign started. which
Yeah, they
makes her
told her to
seem
chill off it for 100 days.
Oh, that's
which
what
makes
the
her seem even more
TikTok guys
fake.
That like, okay, because rumors. There's all kinds of rumors, and I don't like to perpetuate stuff when there's not much more than rumors. But this Kamala is a drunk thing.
Oh yeah.
I'd give that like 80% likelihood of being entirely true.
Yes.
She looks and acts completely fucking wasted in that video.
Oh my god, that one was wild.
Like, because there's a lot in the past where they say she looks drunk here. That last one, holy fuck, she looks drunk, and and not like, oh, I partied drunk, but I drink all the time drunk, because Chris and I know some ladies like that. They just have that constant look. But yeah, I think it's that I'm starting to think that there's a lot of likelihood to that.
There's fire behind the smoke there. No, I think that's probably true. But they came out giving like a bunch of excuses. She only had 100 days, as if that wasn't exactly how they set up. She wouldn't even been the candidate if it hadn't been the 100-day setup. If it had been like a real primary, she wouldn't have gotten there.
Yeah.
But they gave a bunch of excuses for it. But I like how Shapiro described it. Is like, you guys are living in the house of wokeness. You just because you're not currently building it, you're currently living in it. It doesn't. But anyway, lots of different interesting stuff was out there this week. That one super transhuman sugar guy called out Mormon culture for eating the crumbles, and Word Radio had a problem with it. And then Connor Boyack said the church is turning its back on secret combination stuff, and that set off the Thoughtful Saints guys. And just a fast run through of stuff that I saw happening this week. And then Bill and RFM did a whole 2 hours on that guy saying that the church is changing and that they should just treat all prophets as if they were just general men, and that's that. And that's coming from a faithful historian or something like that. And I don't know if there's much else than that. Anything else to fire out? Rapid fire.
Watching us instead of NFL football, guys.
Is that going on right now?
I don't know. Didn't it happen earlier? I don't.
Oh. Anyway,
all
go spend times back with the Wifejack. She was wondering why you had to get on with your internet friends on Thanksgiving anyway. So she has some questions about the movie she's watching.
I got another 3 days hanging out with her.
She might be totally lost in the movie you're watching. You got to go catch her up on that.
All right.
Get her
next week.
All right,
All right,
y'all.
see ya.
Thanks for chilling.